Good morning, we're going to call this hearing to order. If our large crowd would be seated. Thank you all for coming. Thank you to the CBC Church for allowing us to use their wonderful facilities. Thanks to Bill Oliver. As I came in, he was sanitizing everything and setting this up. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Karen, for hauling half of City Hall over here. This is wonderful. Do I hear a motion to adopt the hearing agenda?
So moved.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Obviously, this is a hearing and we're going to discuss the 2021 budget. As per our Sky Valley Charter, our city manager designed our proposed 2021 budget where expenditures are in line with our revenues. Our proposed budget indicates our grand total revenues and expenditures to be $1,226,255. Our proposed budget was made available for citizen review located at City Hall. I hope you all got a chance to look it over. Please allow me to begin with a brief summation of talking points for our proposed 2021 budget. It is proposed that our current millage rate of 15.608 remain the same for 2021. This equates to $59,177.86 per mill and gives us a tax digest of $923,648. Excuse me. A quick review of our revenue sources. I'm sure you're all aware that property taxes represent 92% of our revenues. Charges for services, which is fines, license, and permits, represent 2% of our revenues. Intergovernmental revenue grants, such as LMIG, represent 3% of our revenues, and investment earnings, which includes sales of assets, represents 3% of our revenues, and that is 100% of our revenues. A review of our expenditures from our general fund, we had it broken down into percentages per department. The general government expenditures is 29% of our expenditures. The police department expenditures represents 36% of our budget revenues, expenditures. Fire protection, 7%. Promotion and tourism is 2%, which is an example, fireworks, special events, the hay bales, etc. Economic development is 2%, which constitutes our website and marketing committee commitment by the city. Housing and development is 2%, and that's like our code enforcement officer. Roads, thank you, 22%. Examples of expenditures, salaries, equipment, materials, public works. Okay, thank you, Bill. Specific side notes of some line items in our current budget prepared by Elefast is we purchased legislative laptops for the council last year. We will not have to do that this year, obviously, but we will continue with our Zoom subscription because who knows how long COVID is going to be with us. Election funds is always put in our budget. Even though we might not have to use them, we can always address that in an annual adjusted budget review. There always seems to be a question about the line item of technical services, and that simply is our attorney fees. And I think we have budgeted $20,000 for that. Building and grounds, there's an increase in the line item for landscaping by others because we felt that we needed to pay better attention to all the different entrances into Sky Valley that were looking kind of shabby. So we've increased that line item by $5,000. It also includes taking care of the landscaping of the building on Highway 246. Our police department is now fully staffed with 5 full-time officers providing 24-hour coverage. Fire, Bill, I'm going to let you address that since you have talked to the fire department about that.
Yeah, last year, 1.5 mils, about 88,000 and change was in the budget, and that's what was contributed. They proposed the same. Our direction, as this budget was being prepared, was to remain the same at 1.5 mils, which is 88,500 change. However, when this budget was produced, mistake was made there at 80,413, which is 1.36 mils. So our intention is, after we get done with this whole process, right after the first of the year, we'll make a budget amendment to get it back to 1.5.
Thank you, Bill.
And I communicated that to your board as well.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you. Road funding increase represents an increase in insurance payments to some of our employees and increase in equipment repair costs. Special events have been increased because we know there's always going to be cost increases, and we spent $5,500 on fireworks last year, so we're assuming there will be a cost increase in that. And additional monies was put into that line item for possible events if we decide to do events again next year. The water fund and solid waste funding, there's no proposed increase in rates there, but unfortunately we're proposing that there will be increases in expenses. The technical service, which is inspection, which they do regularly, monitoring fees increased due to wells need, and also monitoring our wells and keeping them in good repair, and we're assuming that we're going to need to do that. Also small equipment, we're adding a shop lift for our public works, which is will be well used so that they can do their own maintenance within the shop and not have to go down the hill and pay for somebody to change the oil, tires, etc. We thought that was a great deal. And would you, I know in another meeting, you did a review of the sources of our revenue reductions and our expenditure increases. Would you just give a brief summary of that? You talked about where our revenues would be decreasing this year and how hard it was to budget.
Okay. I went back and reviewed over the past couple of 3 years some of the variances in our in expenses and revenues, and things for us to all reflect back on is we had a $500,000 reduction in our revenue last year. That was a reduction in taxes, which was close to $30,000. We had between 2019 and 2020, we had a $76,000 actual property taxes reduction, and I'm not sure what the difference there was, but I just noted that we had that reduction. That was the millage rate increase, I believe.
What year was that at?
2019. One of the big things that we lost is the motor vehicle revenue, which is about $50,000 less now that they changed from the ad tax to the sales tax. So, and I guess that I didn't understand this, but what was happening is you had people that had already been that bought their vehicles, and they were continuing to pay that oil tax. Well, that's pretty much gone away now. So I'm told that the state is maybe looking at some way to help the cities like Scott Valley with some means of replacing that revenue. But that was another reduction that we had to live with. We had 2020 versus 2019, we had a loss of $30,000 in court fines, and that was the speeding tickets that we didn't have this year. We had a loss of marketing revenue from 2018 when the club, the POA, and the timeshares, we had a sharing, three-way to two-way sharing program going on that got eliminated 2 years ago. So that had some impact on the city in terms of revenue for our marketing campaigns. On the expense side, we had the administration is gone up almost $17,000, and most of that was professional services increased from $400 to $25,000 in the budget for 2021. In the fire, we increased the fire department's revenue by about $30,000, I think, year before last. Landscaping was eliminated a couple of years ago, so that was added back in this year at $15,000. We've increased that, as Holly mentioned, by $5,000. And by so doing, we're expanding that to do some of the entrances to some of the other neighborhoods. The police department, over the past, from 2017 to now, has increased their budget by $100,000. So all of that was done without it increasing our tax bills. So you can figure that you had to give up something if you want to have a reduction in revenues and an increase in expenses. And lastly, I guess the special events is up $12,500 over the 2020 actual. And I think the question there, and that's to be determined, how much of that is going to come from POA and maybe the club and their contributions to help us with our marketing plans.
Thank you, Ed. Do we have any other comments from the council? Oh, by the way, Bruce Turner is not here. He had a tree fall over his road, and they're cutting it up, and he's trying to get here. I'm supposed to tell y'all that. Any comments from council?
I think when you, once we dig into this and you look at where a lot of the cost increases that Ed talked about, a lot of it's in payroll, taxes, and benefits, which is, that always continues to escalate. And really, as we tore through this thing, we're kind of at a minimum level of staffing. I mean, there was some desire to add some headcount in the roads department, et cetera. It's just not going to happen if we want to keep the village rates the same. So it was, that's a challenge that every business and every organization has these days. So we're not going to, just sit by and say that's what it is. We'll continue to work on and look at some alternatives and see what might be able to be done down the line on some of those costs.
Any other comments before I get to our community members? Any other comments from the council?
No.
This is, I think, a very tight budget. I suspected from the time before I got into public life that we were operating on a pretty much a bare bones budget. And we're constantly trying to figure out how to fund new needs that become identified. As long as I've been looking at this issue, I have not seen any kind of a tax increase, which is good. And I've never seen any kind of a revenue increase, which is not good. Every year inflation seems to increase the salaries and benefits and those costs. So with a flat budget, what do we have left? I mean, my impression is that about 80% of our budget is going to salaries, is that correct?
I guess in the ballpark.
Okay. It's, so, you know, you can't do much about gas, you can't do much about supplies, you can't do much about a lot of things. And I think the time is coming when we need to figure out, you know, how we can increase revenues. And one of the thoughts behind the marketing committee was to stimulate perhaps construction at some point. We're not close to using up our road capacity. We've got plenty of water capacity. We could use more people to share our costs with. The other possibility is that as we stretch our resources, it's going to be harder and harder to do things like just basic tree trimming, recovery from hurricanes, just lots of things that a lot of us as citizens have taken for granted in the past. So I think the day is coming when we're going to have to reckon with how we're going to overcome the last 10 years worth of inflation. And, you know, we're making adjustments gradually. But I don't know how long we can continue to do this. And we've got some of us on the council have years' experience now working with the budget. Now we've created a budget. Next year we'll be looking to see how the budget helps us with our aspirations. And I think we should keep in mind what sort of projects we think are actually needed in Sky Valley for the good of the overall community, and how we're going to fund those in the future.
Thank you, Jim. And I agree. We certainly need to look at our strategic plan and figure out how we need to get it done and prioritize it. Okay. Moody, you okay?
I'm fine.
Now, we will hear from our large number of public people here.
Everybody who is anybody,
And
right?
when, we'd like for you to, when you're recognized, stand up, give us your name and your address, and Steve, you're first. I saw your hand.
Okay, Steve Mason, 38 Pleasant Mountain Drive. One comment and then a couple of questions. And I've made this comment privately to a couple of you, I think. We just built an addition to our house, and our builder suggested that if we made a change to the minimum building size for new construction, that might encourage new construction. And I looked it up, and I'm not sure if I'm exactly right, but I think the current minimum square footage is 1,600 square feet with 1,100 square feet on the first floor.
Correct.
And, you know, our house, as originally built, was 1,220 square feet, so that couldn't be built today. And yet, people still want to build vacation homes, and so that might be something you look at to encourage new construction. The second thing, a couple of questions. One, I noticed general administration is down $28,000. And I wondered if that was salaries or what? Because, like you say, benefits go up. And the second, and I'll just get my questions out.
Okay.
And the second question I had was revenue from for traffic tickets. I think it was $14,000 last year. I don't know what it is in this budget because we don't have the detail. But
Because only us to make comments, people are not.
there may be people who are upset when people get a ticket. But if they're doing 11 over out on 246, they ought to get a ticket because that road doesn't lend itself to speed unless you're driving an Aston Martin, of course.
Yeah, you're right. Yeah.
So, and
Just a little side note to that. It is illegal in the state of Georgia to give tickets for the purpose of generating revenue.
oh, I know.
So we have to, right, Chief?
Yes, sir.
So
We
just,
don't say that's why, but it's for state.
Well, if they're doing 11
no,
over,
I agree with you 100%. We need to be safe.
so you know, it's just I wanted to let you know that some of us think the police department are doing a good job in giving tickets for that kind of stuff, whether we live here or not. And I slow down when I see them. Okay, I'm digressing. Let's see what,
That was it.
is that it? Okay. All right, I'll sit down until I think of something else, but I don't,
Thank you,
nothing
sir.
major.
Thank you, Steve.
Looks like a good budget.
Thank you, sir.
Jan Mason, I also live at 38, but no. I was wondering, I know that the revenue that we have budgeted is for the taxes that were assessed during this year or last year. But do we have any idea about what the increase in assessment may be? Are we seeing any of that for next year with all the improvements and all? I mean, I know our house is going to be assessed at a lot more. And, you know, do we have any way of looking at what that might be? Because I'm thinking that might help with what we're looking at down the road in terms of deficits.
Yeah, when you look at the tax digest and what came back to us is overall, the reassessment of existing real property went up about $330,000. And when you do the calculation based on that and calculate a rollback rate, which we're required to do, that, and does everybody know what a rollback rate is? Rollback rate basically is an exercise that in the state of Georgia you have to go through. And it's designed to calculate a millage rate that would generate the same revenue that you got the year before.
Right.
So if the assessment goes up a little bit, like it has, and I mean, when I say a little bit, it was $330,000 out of a $61 million overall. The rollback rate calculates out at 15.518. And last year our millage was 15,608, so it's 0.09 lower. It's $6,242 spread over the entire community. So our position is, we need the $6,242 to fund this budget. And on a $200,000 house, that means with your tax exemption, your homeowners, you'll pay an extra about $4.60 a year. So take how many, take the valuation of your house, divide by 1,000 times 0.09, and it's very nominal. So millage rate's not going up, the tax bill will go up. Just a
Exactly,
couple
I
of
understand
cents.
all that, I didn't know about that rollback. So hopefully next year it will be a lot more than the 300,000, which is like 0.00% or whatever, hopefully, and that'll be when they adjust and assess for this coming year, correct?
Correct.
Okay, I'm just trying to get my years.
That's important as we continue to have to fund these
Yeah, 'cause
increasing
that, hopefully that will help us, okay.
So, I mean, the direction we gave in this budget is we did not want to raise the millage rate
Well, I appreciate that,
from
thank you.
the previous year.
So
And
that
accomplish
$4
that
will help
with this
us.
budget. And as we make adjustments in it, we'll rebalance it.
Thank you. Did you figure out why we're not paying more for
For general administrative salaries. I'm concerned about these people, I want them to get paid.
Well, there's no cuts in that.
All our employees got a 3% raise.
Okay,
Oh, okay.
okay, good.
All right.
Have they got a 3% every year?
No,
Last year they did.
Okay, okay.
not forever, but yes, they are getting 3% again this year. And well deserved.
Yes.
No question.
The real difference in that payroll is a allocation of part of that to the enterprise funds.
Oh, okay.
So a little bit of that payroll.
So you just
was
move
split.
somebody from one?
That's correct, so it aligns with the duties.
Right.
Okay.
So in other words, James Holbrook, part of his salary, because he works on water 24/7, isn't that right, James? Part of his salary comes from the enterprise fund.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Barbara Kobacker, and I live at 407 Pleasant Mountain Drive. And I'm not a detail person, I'm a global person. And I trust you to do the budget, and I trust you to manage. I would suggest to the mayor and the council, I would like to see long-range plan for Sky Valley. Maybe a 4-year plan, maybe a 3-year plan. And then you give me these dreams and these ideas, and then you hook the budget to that. And I will pay you more tax to get where I want to go. But I need from you more vision of what you're talking about. This sewer thing keeps coming up, and I'm going, why? Give me something in the roads, in the parks, in the building at 246, and then hang the budget on it. We'll pay if we know what we're buying. And I think the budget is fine. What do I know about it? You get money in, you get money out. But let's have some results of money coming in and money going out. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Barbara, and
Thank you, Barbara.
we agree totally with you, and in fact, that's why we have a mayoral advisory committee setting up strategic plans for what our future is, and I agree, we need to hook the budget into that also.
Maybe refer to the survey, gave us some insight.
That's true.
Right, that was one of the basic start of that was that survey that was sent out to get some general opinions of what everybody thinks is important and priorities. Now, you can't always go exactly by that, because it depends on what's affordable and what isn't. But really, where our head's at with this as a council is zero-base the budget, make sure that it's what we need, right? Give priority to the critical services that we have, like the fire department. And then, from that, you look at the strategic plan, like you said, and we have to make sure that some investment is made every year to move that forward. That's a best practice for any organization or corporation, whatever you want to talk. So that's where our head's at right now, and like Holly mentioned, we're really getting started to try to gel that together and make sure that all of this stuff aligns properly. So,
And I would ask that you get your website up so I can zoom in and see, because communication is really what I'm talking about.
yeah.
Website's up, right?
Website is the new one. Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, and the meeting minutes and the video and all that.
They're there. They're there.
Okay.
Of course, we can't put the minutes on until they're approved.
Well,
Soon as
sure.
they're approved, yeah,
Sure.
yeah. But they're there.
Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Barbara, well said.
Well said. Any other comments? We do appreciate y'all coming. We really do. Thank you for coming. We have an optional hearing tonight at 6 for all those who did not get to attend today. And then our next hearing is on next Thursday at 10 o'clock in this same room. And then it will be followed with the regular council meeting where we will look at the resolutions to accept the budget and the millage rate and other fine things. Do I hear a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And thank you all, and maybe we'll have a nice day today with no rain.
Yes, the sun is up. And I want my $4 for my BK Walker. Because that means it's a joke, Linda.